For the last 3-4 years, whatever it's been, I've been telling you about this guy, Morgan Gibbs-White, and how good his finishing is. And yesterday, he proved me right. Welcome to Forest 1, Burnley 4. Alright, that's the best intro I've ever done because no doubt there's some of you that is triggered. Welcome to my post-match breakdown, analysis, reaction, all that good stuff. Make sure you've liked, make sure you're subscribed, hyped, all the rest of the things, because I think Forest are now, how many points are we on? 36? I think we're 1 point away from safety. That's it. Hit 37, we're done. Spurs can fight out with Spurs, really, to see which Spurs go down, Spurs or Spursy. But Forest, after that win, and that was a must-win game. Yes, we can chuck the cliches in, a game of two halves and all that crap. That wasn't a game of two halves. That was a game of two Forests. We were shocking. Let's not beat around the bush. That first half was an appalling performance. It wasn't even just that it was appalling. It was boring. It was boring. We got into this game all tensed up, all worried about it. You saw Spurs crap the bed on Saturday late on. West Ham still need to play on Monday. Leeds pulled themselves away and everything. And then Forest put out a performance like this. And I actually think that Spurs performance was impactful on Forest. And I'll explain why. I think the fact that Spurs didn't win released a bit of the pressure on the boys going into that game. And then when it got into the game, they suddenly psyched themselves up saying, right, if we win this, we're 5 clear, we're safe, Spurs are crap, blah, blah, blah. And I almost think they played their own mind games into their mind games. And kind of Gibbs-White did allude to it at full time. He said they started to feel the nerves in that first half. They could sense the importance of it and everything else. But what I really liked, and we will praise Gibbs-White, don't worry. As I said in the intro, I've told you his finishing's been fantastic. Find me a clip where I haven't said that. But the one that needs praise yesterday is Pereira. Pereira got it. I think he got the selection bang on. I had no problems with the selection. But what I like is even when you get a selection right, the players still need to enact the plan. And they didn't in the first half. And unlike previous managers we've had, Sean Dyche, who was clueless. Who was that before that? Ange Postecoglou, who was just like gun-ho. And I'd even include Nuno in that. Nuno, for me, never made any real changes at half-time that I felt impacted games. And you can chuck Steve Cooper in the Premier League in that as well. Pereira, he said it in his post-match interview. He's taken down a lot of notes. And I've always wondered, what is he doing with those notes? Is he writing an autobiography? The next Harry Potter book? What? No, he divulged it in his post-match interview. He's looking for ways in which he can create space, and he wants to give that information to the players so they can attack. It was quite tight in that first half. Forest weren't getting in behind Burnley, and he's there just jotting things down as he goes along, and I like that. Look, I do like an animated manager on the sidelines. I can't lie, someone who's just breathing the passion and the fire and the feeling of Forest and everything else like that. But sometimes having a pragmatic, kind of calculating manager like Pereira is. And I was listening to Forest All Over the other night. And by the way, Chris, you need to buy those plane tickets. You absolute tight ass. But Chris was saying he was speaking to some Porto fans after the Porto game. And they were telling him about the tactics of Pereira and how good he is tactically. And we're starting to see that. And this is what differentiates some managers from others. Bad managers from average managers to good managers. You can't kick the ball as a manager once the players cross that white line, once the ref blows the whistle to start the match. But you can calculate and see what's happening on the pitch, and you can paint pictures. You can see where the opponent's weaknesses and strengths are, and then you can tactically make your changes. And he said at halftime, you know, he didn't do an ant and go on a rant or anything like that. He just tactically pointed some things out to them, changed it. And moving Gibbs-White over to that left-hand side may have been the most inspired change we've seen this season. Maybe since we've come back up. Because what he did, he didn't put him as a left winger. He almost put him as an inside 10 on the left-hand side, which meant that Gibbs-White could stretch the Burnley backline, but then also find himself and kind of sweep into the pockets of spaces in between their line. And if you look at it, some of the goals we scored were goals we've conceded, where we always concede like from dead balls on the overload on the far post. Gibbs-White was the overload when the balls were coming in from the right-hand side. I thought Hutchinson's crosses were very good in the second half. Einar, Yates's, etc. All of them were on point. And if you look at them, the crosses were quite deep, knowing that we were creating an overload. Because potentially you had Gibbs-White coming in from that side. Nico Williams would have been on there as well, and so on. So tactically, Pereira, I think, got it really, really bang on yesterday. And I don't mind if a team's played rubbish at half-time, in hindsight, obviously, and then you've seen the manager make the changes. Where I get annoyed is where you saw a Sean Dyche crap it up in the first half and then send out the same 11 in the second half. So I've actually been really impressed with Pereira's tactical changes. And I was extremely impressed with Gibbs-White's finishing yesterday. It felt more instinctive, and I think this was the difference with Gibbs-White. First half, he was falling over his own boots, couldn't shoot. Did a back pass shot, and at the start of the second half, he sliced one. But where he scored his goals, they were chances where he hadn't dribbled into the box. He hadn't had to take on a player and then decide, do I release a pass or do I shoot? And then he just, grass cuts one, dribbles it wide or whatever. If you look at his finishes, they were all instinctive. First touch, bang, in it goes. Second goal, same thing. The third goal with the header, instinctive. And I think he needs to start doing that more often. If he can break into the box, be the person going into the box, instinctive, hit the shot, we may see more goals out of him. And what's crazy is I'm sitting here still thinking that he's got, 11 goals. I think he's the third Forest player in history to score a hat-trick in the Premier League alongside Chris Wood and I think Kevin Campbell. What's crazy is that Gibbs-White, I think, should be on at least 5 to 7 more goals in the Premier League this season. And this is going to give him some confidence. And if he's thinking about breaking into that into the World Cup with England, he is now going about the right way. He's going about the right way about it. That's what I'm trying to say. And it doesn't take much for Gibbs-White to get hyped up. We know Match of the Day love him, Sky love him, we love him, right? So he's just got to keep doing what he's doing. So we're going to get a motivated Gibbs-White going into these last 5 Premier League games and however long we've got in the Europa League. And that's only good for us. Overall, I'm happy with the result, ecstatic with the result. It puts us in a very strong position. And what I want us to do now is do what Leeds did last week. Leeds went to Old Crapford on Monday, took 3 points, and then Saturday morning went and took 3 points. 6 points, put themselves up to 39. We are in a similar position now. We played after Spurs. We took 3 points. We play on Friday against Sunderland. If we take 3 points there, put us to 39. We're on 39 points before Spurs have even kicked a ball. Gives us an 8-point cushion. Obviously, they would have a game in hand. But the psychological damage that will do to the Spurs players will be crazy, crazy good. So I'm quite happy. And also, if we beat Sunderland, we get to 39 points, then right off the next 4 games, I don't care about them because I think we're safe with 39 points. Yeah, we'll probably scumbag a point or two here or there, right? Get us over 40. Every bit of focus goes on that Europa League because I want that trophy. This club needs to be back in the Champions League. And we have a crazy scenario here where this team, with this season that we've had, with the stress and the pain and the anger and everything else, this season could still end up being one of the best outside of the promotion in recent memories. But having said that, last season was good. But a trophy, an actual major trophy, which we haven't picked up since 1990. This could be a game-changing season. And then all those people that say, 4 managers, what are Forest doing? We can stick 2 fingers up at them. But there's a lot of hurdles to get to before we get past that. So let's start with Sunderland. Get 3 points at Sunderland. They're going to be heartbroken after that late dagger from Villa, losing 4-3. And on Villa, they're not looking that great either. Okay, they may have peaked too early against Bologna. These next 2 weeks are going to be fascinating. And let's see what happens with West Ham tonight, because it could just be Spurs left to fight against Spurs. So, who goes down? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We'll be on Grumpy Old Reds tonight. Looking forward to it. There's a lot to dissect from the game yesterday. Make sure you've liked, make sure you've subscribed. 4-1 to Forest. We're nearly there. One more point. Come on, you Reds.